60. And then because this story has a hopeful side, I'm going to reveal 4 cheeses that are genuinely powerful for your bones, your heart, your digestion, and even your brain. Cheeses that, when eaten correctly, become something close to a superfood. Before we begin, tell me in the comments which cheese you eat most often and where you're watching from. I read every single comment, and I want to know who I'm talking to tonight. Also, hit that like button and subscribe, because every piece of information I share on this channel is designed specifically for people over 60 who want to stay strong, independent, and genuinely healthy. New content every week. Don't miss it. Now, let's get into it. Here's what nobody in the dairy aisle will say out loud. After 60, cheese stops being a simple food. It becomes something your body has to work much harder to process. And depending on which type you're eating, that work either pays off beautifully or it quietly tears down systems you can't afford to lose. The problem isn't the cheese itself. Cheese, made properly, aged correctly, from good milk, is one of the most nutrient-dense foods available to us. It has been nourishing human bodies for thousands of years. But the modern dairy aisle is a very different landscape from what our grandparents knew. Processed versions, chemical-laden spreads, pre-shredded bags full of additives, these products wear the name cheese, but they share almost nothing with the real thing. And for men and women over 60, the consequences of eating the wrong kind are not minor. We're talking about increased strain on blood pressure, added stress on kidneys that are already working harder than they used to, gut disruption that feeds inflammation throughout the entire body. And, over time, a slow but steady erosion of the very systems, cardiovascular, digestive, cognitive, that keep you mobile and independent. The good news? Once you know which cheeses to avoid and which ones to actively seek out, the shift is simple. You don't need to stop eating cheese. You just need to eat the right cheese. Tonight, I'm going to show you exactly which ones those are. Let me explain why cheese becomes such a significant issue specifically after 60. Because understanding this will make everything I share tonight make a lot more sense. As we age, several things change inside the body that affect how we process food. Digestion slows. The gut lining becomes more permeable, meaning things that used to stay out of your bloodstream can now slip through more easily. Kidney function gradually decreases, which means your body becomes less efficient at filtering out toxins and excess sodium. And the cardiovascular system becomes more sensitive to inflammation, saturated fats, and chemical additives than it ever was before. Cheese, because it is often high in sodium, fat, and in processed versions, a long list of artificial compounds, hits all of these vulnerable points at once. I had a patient, a gentleman in his early 60s, who came to me with persistent bloating, rising blood pressure that his medication wasn't fully controlling, and a general feeling of heaviness and fatigue that wouldn't lift no matter what he tried. He was eating reasonably well, he exercised, he wasn't doing anything obviously wrong. But when we sat down and went through his diet carefully, cheese came up immediately. He was eating processed cheese slices almost every day. A jar of cheese spread sat permanently on his kitchen counter, and he bought pre-shredded bags every week for convenience. Once we swapped those out for aged, naturally fermented cheeses, the kind I'm going to tell you about tonight, his blood pressure began to stabilize within 3 weeks. The bloating eased, his energy started to return. One change, one area of his diet, enormous difference. That's the kind of impact we're talking about. Worst cheese number 4, processed cheese slices. These are the ones wrapped in individual plastic squares, the ones you stack on sandwiches without a second thought. The bright, convenient, perfectly uniform slices that have become a staple in kitchens everywhere. Here's the uncomfortable truth about them. Less than half of what's inside that wrapper is actual dairy. The rest is a combination of emulsifiers, preservatives, artificial colors, phosphates, and stabilizers that your body was genuinely never designed to process. The sodium alone is staggering. 2 slices can contain over 600 milligrams, already a quarter of the daily safe limit for most older adults. But it's not just the amount of sodium that's the problem. It's the form. Much of it comes as sodium phosphate, which research has linked to accelerated kidney decline, arterial stiffness, and faster aging of blood vessels. Then there are the emulsifiers compounds, like polysorbate 80 and carboxymethylcellulose, that are added to keep the cheese smooth and spreadable. Studies have connected these additives to disruption of the gut microbiome and increased intestinal permeability, and when the gut is compromised, inflammation doesn't stay local. it spreads. It feeds joint pain. It clouds thinking. It quietly undermines immunity. The artificial colors, often yellow 5 or yellow 6, have been linked in long-term studies to allergic reactions and, in some cases, more serious concerns. And the preservatives extend shelf life beautifully, but they can interfere with the healthy bacteria your gut desperately needs after 60. The bottom line is this: processed cheese slices are not really cheese. They are a chemical product that happens to taste like cheese. And for anyone over 60, they are worth removing from your kitchen entirely. Worst cheese number 3. Jarred cheese spreads. If processed cheese slices surprised you, this one might genuinely shock you. Because jarred cheese spreads, the kind that sit on shelves for months without refrigeration, are, in many ways, even worse. Think about that for a moment. Real cheese is a living food. It contains bacteria, it ferments, it changes over time. If a cheese product can sit on a shelf, unchilled, for months or even years without spoiling, it is no longer behaving like food. It is a manufactured product held together by chemistry. What's actually inside those jars? Modified starches, artificial fats, stabilizers, and flavor enhancers, often more of these than actual dairy. Many jarred spreads contain partially hydrogenated oils, which are artificial trans fats strongly linked to heart disease. Some countries have banned them outright. The sodium levels are alarming too. 2 teaspoons of a typical cheese spread can contain over 500 milligrams of sodium, and realistically, nobody stops at 2 teaspoons. That sodium, layered on top of preservatives and flavor enhancers, puts genuine stress on your heart and kidneys. Some of these spreads also contain compounds like MSG or glutamate listed on labels as yeast extract or natural flavors, which can trigger headaches, palpitations, and digestive discomfort in sensitive individuals. After 60, sensitivity to these compounds tends to increase, not decrease. The packaging itself can be a concern. Research has shown that certain plastics used in food containers can leach hormone-disrupting chemicals into the product, particularly when stored at room temperature for extended periods. None of this is worth the convenience. If you enjoy a spreadable cheese, there are real options: soft, naturally fermented cheeses that deliver actual nutrition without the chemical burden. We'll get to those shortly. Worst cheese number 2, pre-shredded cheese in bags. This one catches a lot of people off guard because pre-shredded cheese feels like such a normal, everyday purchase. But the convenience comes at a cost that most people never think about. To stop shredded cheese from clumping together inside the bag, manufacturers add anti-caking agents, often cellulose, which is derived from wood, pulp, or potato starch. Cellulose isn't toxic, but it is completely indigestible. For older adults with already sensitive digestion, it can cause bloating, discomfort, and reduced absorption of the cheese's actual nutrients. But that's not the most concerning part. Most pre-shredded cheeses also contain natamycin, an antifungal agent that prevents mold from forming. Natamycin is technically classified as an antibiotic. And regular exposure to antibiotics, even low-level food-based exposure, can gradually disrupt your gut microbiome. The very ecosystem of bacteria that protects your immunity, supports your digestion, and even influences your mood. The shredding process itself is problematic. It exposes a much larger surface area of cheese to air, which accelerates oxidation and nutrient loss. By the time the bag reaches your kitchen, much of what made that cheese valuable has already degraded. And there's a food safety dimension worth mentioning. The more food is handled and processed, the higher the risk of contamination. Several recalls of pre-shredded cheeses over the years have been linked to bacterial contamination. For seniors, whose immune systems are less robust than they once were, that risk is not trivial. The fix is genuinely simple. Buy cheese in block form. Shred it yourself when you need it. It takes 30 seconds. The flavor is better, the nutrition is intact, and you avoid every single one of these hidden risks. Worst cheese number 1, blue cheese. Now this one is going to upset some people, because blue cheese has a reputation. It feels sophisticated. It sits on dinner boards at gatherings. It carries an air of something refined and intentional. But for anyone over 60, blue cheese is the single most problematic cheese on this list, and the reasons stack up quickly. The first and most serious concern is tyramine. Blue cheese is extraordinarily high in tyramine, a compound that forms naturally as proteins break down during the aging process. In younger, healthier bodies, tyramine is processed relatively efficiently. But after 60, especially in anyone taking medications for blood pressure, depression, or Parkinson's disease, tyramine can cause sudden and dangerous spikes in blood pressure. We're not talking about a mild fluctuation. We're talking about the kind of spike that can lead to a stroke or a heart attack, even without medication interactions. High tyramine intake can trigger severe migraines, dizziness, and intense headaches in sensitive individuals, and sensitivity tends to increase with age. Then there are the histamines. Blue cheese contains some of the highest histamine levels of any food. For people with histamine sensitivity, which becomes more common after 60, this can trigger headaches, skin reactions, digestive distress, restlessness, and even insomnia. The cruel irony is that many men reach for blue cheese because they enjoy the flavor, never realizing it might be the very thing disrupting their sleep and leaving them feeling worse the next morning. The mold itself, the blue veins that give this cheese its character, produces compounds called mycotoxins during fermentation. In small doses, a healthy immune system can manage them. But after 60, when the liver and immune defenses are already working harder, mycotoxin exposure can accumulate quietly over time, contributing to chronic fatigue, brain fog, and inflammation. And finally, the sodium and saturated fat content is significant. A single ounce of blue cheese can carry 400 milligrams or more of sodium, alongside palmitic acid, a type of saturated fat that research has shown to be particularly inflammatory. Together, they put real pressure on arteries that are already becoming less flexible with age. Blue cheese is the one cheese I would genuinely encourage you to remove from your plate entirely after 60. The risks are simply too high for the flavor it provides. Now, here's where tonight gets genuinely encouraging, because for every cheese that works against you after 60, there are cheeses that actively work for you. Cheeses that support your bones, protect your heart, ease your digestion, and even help keep your mind sharper. Best cheese number 4, aged Gouda. Aged Gouda is where time becomes an advantage. Most cheeses lose nutritional value the longer they sit. Gouda does the opposite. Once it has matured for at least 18 months, something remarkable happens inside it. The proteins break down into smaller fragments called peptides, and for seniors, this matters enormously. Your digestive system becomes less efficient at breaking down whole proteins as you age. Aged Gouda essentially delivers protein in a form that is already partially digested, far easier to absorb, far less likely to cause the bloating and discomfort that heavy cheeses can trigger. Those peptides provide amino acids that your body uses to repair muscle, heal tissue, and maintain strength. But the real star of aged Gouda is vitamin K2. This cheese is one of the richest natural dietary sources of K2 available to us. And vitamin K2 does something that is genuinely critical for older adults. It directs calcium away from your arteries and toward your bones. Without K2, calcium can drift into arterial walls, stiffening them and raising cardiovascular risk. With K2, that same calcium is guided into your skeleton, strengthening bones and reducing the risk of fractures. Research has shown that higher K2 intake is associated with significantly less arterial calcification and meaningfully stronger bones. Aged Gouda is also well tolerated by most people with lactose sensitivity because the lactose breaks down almost completely during the aging process. So even if dairy has been difficult for you in the past, aged Gouda is often a cheese you can enjoy without discomfort. How to eat it. Let it come to room temperature before eating. This unlocks both flavor and nutrient availability. A serving of 1 to 1.5 ounces per day, paired with apple slices or whole grain crackers, is ideal. Best cheese number 3, authentic Parmigiano Reggiano. Let me be very clear about something before we go further. I am not talking about the powdered cheese in the green can that sits on supermarket shelves. That product is often filled with cellulose and preservatives and shares very little with the real thing. I'm talking about authentic Parmigiano Reggiano, the Italian original, aged for up to 32 months, produced under strict traditional standards. And when you eat the real version, the nutritional profile is genuinely impressive. The aging process does something extraordinary to the protein in this cheese. It breaks it down into amino acids and peptides that your body can absorb with almost no digestive effort. For seniors with sensitive stomachs or compromised digestion, authentic Parmesan is one of the most efficient protein sources available. It delivers what your muscles and tissues need to stay strong without making your gut work overtime. The calcium content is remarkable too. 1 ounce of authentic Parmesan contains around 330 milligrams of calcium, more than a glass of milk. But unlike many calcium supplements, which can have absorption rates as low as 30%, the natural ratio of calcium, phosphorus, and magnesium in Parmesan means your body absorbs it far more effectively. That calcium goes where it needs to go into your bones rather than floating into your arteries. And here's something that surprised me when I first looked into it. Parmesan contains unique peptides that research has linked to reduced anxiety and improved sleep. It's also rich in tyrosine, an amino acid your brain uses to produce dopamine and norepinephrine, the neurotransmitters that keep you alert, focused, and motivated. So authentic Parmesan isn't just protecting your bones, it's quietly supporting your mental clarity too. Like aged Gouda, it is virtually lactose-free after its long fermentation. And the beneficial bacteria that survive the aging process can actually make it through your digestive tract intact, where they support gut health and reduce inflammation. How to eat it. Break it into small chunks rather than grating it. The texture releases flavor differently, and it slows down eating naturally, which supports digestion. A small handful alongside a meal is plenty. Best cheese number 2, Kefir cheese. This one is less well known, but it deserves far more attention than it gets. Kefir cheese is made from kefir, a fermented milk drink that contains a significantly higher diversity of beneficial bacteria and yeasts than standard yogurt or cheese. And when that fermentation is used to create a cheese, the result is something that does extraordinary things for your gut. The bacterial diversity in kefir cheese is genuinely remarkable. While a typical probiotic supplement might contain 3 to 5 strains of bacteria, kefir can contain dozens. And these aren't just passing through your digestive system. Many of them colonize your gut, meaning they stay and get to work, reducing inflammation, supporting immunity, and improving the communication between your gut and your brain. That gut-brain connection is something we talk about a great deal in modern health research, and for good reason. A significant portion of your neurotransmitters, the chemicals that regulate mood, focus, and even sleep, are produced in your gut, not your brain. When the gut microbiome is healthy and diverse, mental clarity tends to improve. When it's disrupted, the effects show up not just in digestion, but in how you think and feel. Kefir cheese also contains prebiotic fibers that feed the beneficial bacteria already living in your system. It's not just delivering good bacteria, it's creating an environment where they can thrive. For seniors with compromised gut health, chronic low-grade inflammation, or a mood that has been feeling flatter than it used to, kefir cheese can be a genuinely meaningful addition to the diet. How to eat it. Spread it on whole grain toast or crackers. A tablespoon or 2 per day is a comfortable starting point. It has a mild, slightly tangy flavor that most people find very pleasant. Best cheese number 1, cottage cheese. And now for the one that brings everything together. Cottage cheese might be the most underestimated cheese on the planet. It looks humble. It doesn't sit on gourmet cheese boards. But from a nutritional standpoint, especially for men and women over 60, it is extraordinary. The protein content alone sets it apart. 1 cup of cottage cheese contains roughly 25 grams of high-quality protein. And the type of protein casein is what's called a slow-digesting protein. It releases amino acids gradually into your bloodstream over several hours rather than flooding the system all at once. For older adults, this is ideal. It gives your muscles a steady, sustained supply of the building blocks they need to maintain strength and prevent the kind of gradual muscle loss that becomes a real concern after 60. Cottage cheese is also relatively low in sodium compared to many other cheeses, which makes it far gentler on blood pressure and kidney function. And it contains a meaningful amount of selenium, a mineral that plays a critical role in thyroid function, immune defense, and even cellular repair. But perhaps the most